Today on Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the big matchup coming up here in the ACC in Week 10 of this 2021 college football season. And it'll be over the Wake Forest Demon Deacons and the North Carolina Tar Heels. Huge matchup for both these teams heading into Week 10. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with your team trends. Wake Forest last week beat Duke 45-7 was the final score there, and they're still undefeated at 8-0. Who would have seen that coming? The Demon Deacons are the best team by far in the ACC this season. So, I mean, this offense, especially Sam Hartman, I mean, they've been having a great season, so huge credit to them. They're in the top 10, currently ranked number 9, according to the college football playoff rankings. So I'm sure it's a lot of pressure on Wake Forest right now, but this team is definitely worthy of winning an ACC title this season. It's pretty crazy. I mean, Clemson, of course, not being very good this year. Wake Forest has capitalized on that. That's for sure. North Carolina, though, they lost to Notre Dame in their last game. 34-44 was the final score there. So they hung around against the Irish, but in the end, Notre Dame did get the win. But overall, good effort out of North Carolina, which this team has just been a huge disappointment. I'm sure if you're a North Carolina fan, I mean, you feel the same way. Sam Howell, going into the season, was expected to be a Heisman contender. This team was expected to be a college football playoff contender, and it's been the exact opposite. I mean, from the start of the season, North Carolina just was not looking like, I mean, especially in 2020, this was a team that was a contender, and 2021 has been a different story, unfortunately, for the Tar Heels, but they are 4-4 heading into this matchup, and the goal for North Carolina right now is get to a bowl game. If you can get to 6 or 7 wins, that's the best case scenario right now for the Tar Heels, which, I mean, they can still get to 8-4, especially if they can get a huge upset win here. I mean, there's a chance, but yeah, North Carolina is 4-4 heading into this matchup. Game will be on Saturday, November 6th in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So the Tar Heels are the home team here, and it'll be at noon Eastern time. Spread's currently going North Carolina 2.5 points. So actually, it would not be an upset if North Carolina won, even though Wake Forest is a top 10 team. Wake Forest did actually be an upset if Wake Forest won this game, because North Carolina is ahead on the spread. But over under 76.5, so it's expected to be a high scoring shootout potentially. And your FPI is going North Carolina 54.9%. Series history, North Carolina leads at 70-36, so that's probably a part of the reason why North Carolina is favored on the spread, is because the Tar Heels have had a long, successful history against Wake Forest. 70-36 win streak is North Carolina by 1, and in the last 5, North Carolina leads at 3-2. So Wake Forest has won 2 of the last 5, but in the end, the Tar Heels have been more successful in the long term. Stat comparison for this matchup: Wake Forest has 43 points per game. Once again, this offense of Wake Forest has been outstanding this season. Sam Hartman, I mean, he's been excellent for this football team. I mean, we saw a pretty good offense with Jamie Newman previously, but Sam Hartman has really had a great year for Wake Forest. 23 points allowed, 311 pass yards a game, 183 rush yards, and then for yards allowed, 219 passing, 201 for rushing. So rushing defensive stats are not as good. 201 rush yards allowed per game is not the best. You usually want to keep that number below 100, and Wake Forest is at 200, so definitely something to consider there. North Carolina, 36 points per game, 30 points allowed, 280 pass yards a game, 200 rush yards, and then for yards allowed, 221 passing, and then 175 for rushing. Recent matchups as well, Wake Forest, of course, is still undefeated. They beat Duke 45-7, beat Army in a huge, I think that's the highest scoring game in D1 college football this season, if I'm right, 70-56. I mean, that was an incredible game. Syracuse beat them 40-37 in overtime, beat Louisville by 3. That's kind of when I was kind of questioning Wake Forest, whether or not this was a good football team in the beginning of October, when they had close games to Louisville and Syracuse. But, I mean, they put up 70 points on Army, even though they did allow 56 points. But they did beat Duke 45-7, solid win, which, I mean, Duke is a pretty terrible football team, but at least Wake Forest did what they were supposed to and took care of business. And they also had that huge win over Virginia. That is a quality win now, looking where Virginia is at. I mean, that's the Cavaliers are a pretty good football team. So, yeah, winning that game 37-17 by about 20 points is a solid win for sure for Wake Forest. North Carolina lost to Notre Dame 34-44. They beat Miami by 3, 45-42. Lost to Florida State 25-35, beat Duke 38-7, and then, of course, lost to Georgia Tech. That was an ugly game, 22-45 against the Yellow Jackets there of Georgia Tech. So, yeah, North Carolina, once again, this has just been an unfortunate team this season. I mean, many people, including myself, expected them to be 10-11 wins, potentially win the ACC, which considering Clemson's been down this season, I mean, I expected it. I mean, by the way, I'm not the only one who expected this. I thought it was going to be Clemson, North Carolina, and Miami, all three of those teams potentially being big contenders for maybe even the college football playoff, but it's been the exact opposite. I mean, the ACC has been the most unpredictable conference this season, that's for sure. Some key points here, of course, Wake Forest being undefeated, still only chance the ACC has the college football playoff. I mean, this Wake Forest team, this is a team that still has legitimate chances. If they can win out here and win the ACC championship game at 13-0, I mean, Wake Forest, this team could be in the college football playoff. It is within reason to believe that the Demon Deacons could potentially be in the top 4. I mean, they're kind of taking Clemson's spot this season as the top team in the ACC, and this is a very good football team. I mean, you can see that there's plenty of talent on this team, and potentially, who knows, down the line we could see this team in the top 4 come December. But obviously for Wake Forest, they got to take care of business here against North Carolina, and they've got several tough matchups here in November. But yeah, offensively, one of the best in the nation. Sam Hartman has been outstanding as well. North Carolina, disappointing season for the Tar Heels. Once again, I talked about that. They've got a huge opportunity to get a quality win here. I mean, this would be huge for the Tar Heels. I mean, I'm sure it's been a very frustrating season for Sam Howell and everyone in a part of this team. But, I mean, if they can get a win here against an undefeated Wake Forest team, maybe that boosts the morale a bit of this football team. But inconsistency has been an issue for the Tar Heels. They've got one good game every once in a while, and sometimes they just have a terrible performance like they did against Georgia Tech a few weeks back. But that said, let's get to the prediction here for Wake Forest and North Carolina. I'm going to go Tar Heels there, 34-31. This was a tough one to predict. I'm going to go 55% towards North Carolina. This was, once again, basically a coin toss. Both teams are very capable of winning it. But I think North Carolina, this is a football team that, talent-wise, I mean, they should win this game. And they're also at home, and I think North Carolina definitely, I mean, they've got nothing to lose at this point. Well, they do need to still make it to a bowl game. But, I mean, North Carolina, this is a football team. I mean, this is their big game of November here. And so for the Tar Heels, it's going to be important for this team to get a win here. Same thing for Wake Forest. I mean, still being undefeated and college football playoff chances on the line. But North Carolina being at home in this matchup, and I mean, potentially could be a higher scoring matchup. I'm going to take the under here by about 10 points. I don't think it's going to be quite as high scoring as expected. But North Carolina, I'm going to take the Tar Heels to cover as well. I just think Wake Forest, I mean, I'm not sure how this team is going to handle being in the number 9 position in the college football playoff rankings. I mean, there's still a few uncertainties I have about Wake Forest, but if the Demon Deacons do win this game, which is, by the way, very possible, if they do win this game, this is a football team that really needs to start, they need to be taken seriously for sure, because this is a huge road test for Wake Forest, and this is where we kind of find out whether or not Wake Forest is a real team or not, because, I mean, North Carolina, despite them being 4-4 right now, very good football team. There's a lot of talent on the Tar Heels right now, and I mean, they've got not much to lose really in this matchup. So I'm going to go Tar Heels by 3. It's going to be very close. Both teams can win it, but I'm going to go Tar Heels 34-31. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this game, and I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.